I was disturbed pretty deeply when Elizabeth Warren made her comment about the death of the CEO of UnitedHealth. He's a father, by the way, has 2 children. And essentially she said, well, hey, sometimes you just get so cheesed off, it's just a matter of time before you take things into your own hand, I guess meaning that people are upset about rising healthcare costs. No one seems to be upset, however, about Barack Obama, who promised that he would bend the cost curve down. Here again is Senator Warren, number 53.
So look, terrible for individuals, but stop and think overall about the social contract. You know, part of the deal in how we've kept this democracy, this economy, this country on a fairly steady path for more than 200 years has been that those at the top pay a little more in taxes, are a little less rich than they otherwise might be, and everybody else at least gets a chance.
Yeah.
And what happens when you turn this into the billionaires run it all is they get the opportunity to squeeze every last penny.
Yeah.
And look, we'll say it over and over. Violence is never the answer. This guy gets a trial who's allegedly killed the CEO of UnitedHealth. But you can only push people so far. And then they start to take matters into their own hands.
Yeah.
It's such a disgustingly offensive and stupid comment. I mean, even coming from her, and the bar is already low. First of all, she calls him an alleged killer. Did you read his manifesto? He admits it. And then she goes on her usual left-wing rant about people being rich, not paying their taxes, and exploiting other people. We've talked about this a million times. The top 1% of federal income taxpayers pay a little bit more than 40% of all the federal income taxes. 40. The top 10% pay close to 75 or 80%. The bottom half pay almost nothing. It is just a big, fat lie. And people like that say it over and over and over again in much of the country because they get their news from ABC, NBC, CBS, educated in our left-wing universities where professors are radical. Believe it. It's a big, fat lie. Now, regarding him being an alleged killer, here is what he wrote. Quote, to the feds, I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial. Some elementary social engineering, some basic computer-assisted design, and a lot of patience. The spiral notebook, if present, has some straggling notes and a to-do list that illuminate the gist of it. My tech is pretty locked down because I work in engineering, so probably not much info there. I do apologize for any strife of traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parallels are coming. A reminder, the U.S. has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly 42 in life expectancy. United is, it's hard to read his handwriting, largest company in the U.S. by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, Walmart. United is referring to the company the CEO headed. It has grown and grown, but as our life expectancy, no, the reality is these, and again, can't make out the word, have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American people has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously, the problem is more complex, but I do not have the space and frankly do not pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the full argument. But many have illuminated the corruption and greed. Rosenthal, Moore, decades ago, and problems simply remain. It's not an issue of awareness at this point, but clearly power games at play. Evidently, I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty, end of quote. I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone, so here he is admitting that he did it. Now, some people find him a fairly attractive man. By the way, I would argue that so is Daniel Penny, but Daniel Penny has not been turned into a rock star the way this guy has been. Listen to the Jimmy Kimmel monologue, number 45.
We definitely know who wins Time's Sexiest Alleged Murderer of the Year. That would go to Luigi Mangione, the suspect in the shooting of the CEO of UnitedHealth CEO, who's become the hottest cold-blooded killer in America. I'm not sure what this says about us, but ever since these photos of him came out, from his holding cell, from his mugshot, someone found his abs somewhere online. Ryan Murphy right now is flying to Netflix headquarters in a jetpack. So many women and so many men are going nuts over how good-looking this killer is. And there's a huge wave of horny washing over us right now. It's like when one of the guys you work with says, I had a dream about you last night. When it's the FedEx guy with the big muscles and the rolled-up sleeves, you're like, oh. But if it's the bald IT guy wearing Crocs with black socks, you're on the phone with HR. It's kind of that same dynamic. Our staff today, I have never experienced anything like this. These are screen grabs of actual exchanges between our members of our staff and their friends, relatives, whatever. I've changed the names to protect the guilty, but that's it. See, Lorraine
Okay, all right.
C.
And then he proceeds to talk about how members of his staffers are talking about how good-looking the guy is, and people on his who work on his show, and notice the laughter. This man was gunned down in cold blood, execution style, father of two. Meanwhile, Daniel Penny is trying to rescue people, trying to help people from somebody who was terrorizing people. Mr. CEO was walking down the street. I know his crime is that he's a capitalist, and obviously a successful one. And because people like Elizabeth Warren believe health care is right and somehow you should figure out some way of giving it to people for free, he's a villain. But people on the left don't perceive Daniel Penny to be a hero. Daniel Penny, by the way, praised the jury for sticking up for him because he knows the tough environment New York is. Number 2.
A jury of your peers, Danny, felt unanimously, beyond a reasonable doubt, that you committed no wrongdoing. What would you say to them?
I'd like to give them a hug. I'd like to thank them. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it takes a lot of courage, especially in this climate in New York City, to stick up for me.
And over on CNN, Audie Cornish refers to her sympathy for him as the Christian thing, number 1.
Florida.
Well, wasn't
the worst, it was a negligent, criminally negligent.
Can I ask you a question?
I want to make this point. Because Alvin Bragg has been the nemesis of Donald Trump, any criticism of Bragg automatically becomes political. I don't mean it to be political. I worked in that office. So did my daughter, who, the sister of the one who works here. This prosecutor made a political decision to go after this white Marine because of his constituency, and I think that he really...
Can I ask a question related to this, then? What do you say to the parents of a victim who dies in this circumstance? You just say, hey, sorry, not
and Bragg
my
is
gig,
not the first
or,
move,
like,
he'd be the last.
this is not me saying it's good or bad, but prosecutors do go after people all the time for a variety of things.
You keep referring to Neely as the victim. I think Penny is the victim in this case, and I think the people on that, I think people on the train are the victim.
I have a tendency to call the people who die a victim. We have different ideas about that, but to my mind, someone lost a child, and I'm always going to feel for that person. That's just how I'm built. It's like a Christian thing. But the reason why I'm asking is...
Are you saying I'm not a Christian?
I'm not at all. I just want to make sure that you understand.
Are you saying I'm not it's a Christian thing? He's a victim. You come back, I'm talking a little bit about a few things this Christian thing victim did. I'm Larry Elder.